I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. You?
I'm doing good. Thank you very much for coming to my show.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to be here.
So, I thought to tell about the work that you are doing to my audience.
Yeah, so just for those who don't know me, my name is Richard Burrs, and I work at Microsoft, and I work as a cloud solution architect. So I've been with Microsoft now for a little over a year, about a year and a half now. So I primarily work with our customers to help them get successfully onboarded into the cloud. So those customers who are looking to onboard into our cloud service, Microsoft Azure, I'll work with them in that capacity, specifically around Azure infrastructure, or as we call it, Azure core services. So any workloads related to that, I help them successfully adapt the cloud. And I work with customers also who may be experiencing any challenges. I work with them and helping them unblock, any technical blockers that they may be having in their cloud adoption journey, and also conducting workshops to help them educate them around best practices. And so, with my job, I work in a designated capacity with customers. So what that means is we have customers who they may decide to purchase a contract with Microsoft. And with that contract, they get certain credits for support and workshops, things of that nature. And also, they get a designated engineer, such as myself, who works with them. And so I'm assigned to that customer for the duration of that contract, typically for about a year. And so I will work with them in the areas that I just mentioned. So I'm like their trusted advisor in their cloud adoption journey, making sure that they're doing the right things as they adopt the cloud, helping them overcome any challenges that they may have with their workloads, etc. As I mentioned, doing workshops with customers. So that's basically what I'll do in a nutshell.
So, what companies are there? I mean, their infrastructure, which belongs to which companies, which belongs to which industry?
So which customers you saying do I work with?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I don't want to give any specific company names, but they're in a wide variety of areas.
In which
One is,
industry?
yeah, so one is in the shipping industry, is a major company that everybody knows and is familiar with. They're in the shipping industry. One company, let's see, they're in the oil and gas industry. And I've worked with another customer who's in the communications industry. So this is a wide variety of industries in terms of customers. But one thing that they all have in common, excuse me, is that they're all commercial customers. So I work in the commercial space, but it's not a particular industry that I'm aligned to.
So, working on completely different industries and understanding the infrastructure and making them come into the cloud. So, how challenging for you that is?
The biggest challenge is that so each customer is different. So you have to get familiar with their environment, and you have to know their needs, what are their goals. So, and like as I mentioned, the area that I work in, that I focus around, is Azure Core Services or infrastructure services, and that's a wide range of things. That can be Azure virtual machines, networking, storage, governance, you name it. It's a wide range. So each customer, they may have a need in all these areas. So it's very, it's the cloud is very big, especially within Azure Core. So no one's ever really an expert in all of those things. It's very difficult to become very a deep expert, subject matter expert in all those areas. So you may have a customer who has a need in that area. You may have to ramp up to the best of your ability. And so that's the biggest challenge, just being stretched across all those areas and being able to successfully help customers no matter what their need is. And but the best thing, the biggest thing, or the best thing about working at Microsoft is that we have a large support group of my colleagues who I can lean on. Some some colleagues, they may be more knowledgeable in the area than I am. So we work very closely together to support each other with each other's customers. So we're not expected to know everything. Nobody can possibly know everything when it comes to the cloud, and I certainly don't, and nobody does. So we do work together to kind of help support each other in the areas that we may not be um, the most knowledgeable in.
Why you wanted to be in Microsoft Azure?
I love the cloud. Number one, the cloud is definitely um, the future of tech. I think that there was a point where a lot of companies, maybe about 5 years ago at least, maybe more 10 years ago, when the cloud was fairly new, and there was a lot of skepticism. A lot of companies, they were slow to adopt the cloud because they were afraid that this was a very insecure environment, and that came with not being, I guess, very knowledgeable of the cloud. But the cloud is inevitable. You cannot really succeed as a company by just staying away and ignoring the cloud. And so to me, that's basically it's the present and the future of technology. And so also the cloud is also where you can innovate, I think, and also modernize a lot of your workloads to adapt to a fast changing environment. So to me, it's a very exciting space to be in. It's opportunities to learn, so there's never a shortage of things to learn and to get your hands on and play with. And I'm one of those type of people where I like learning new things. So if so, being in the cloud definitely suits me in terms of satisfying my growth for my desire for knowledge and growth.
So what exactly your job is? Is it important for you to know the application development, how the software is developed, and are you a coder?
Yes and no. I'm not what you would consider a developer, so I'm not a programmer. Now, I'm what I would call an infrastructure developer. So in that sense, yes, I am a coder, and I know infrastructure as code and some of the tools for coding and deploying your infrastructure. And one tool that I work with quite a lot is Terraform, because a lot of my customers, most of my customers work with Terraform, and also some ARM templates as well. So from that standpoint, I am a coder, but I'm not a coder. I'm not an app developer. So I don't code or develop apps, but I code and develop infrastructure. But I guess to answer your main question, is it important to be an application developer? Not as a cloud architect. No, it's not. Um, you do have to understand some basics of knowing the application development lifecycle, only because being in the cloud, um, the lines between engineers and application developers have been blurred. So, you can't be a successful cloud architect if you just focus on, I guess, infrastructure and building infrastructure. You got to understand a lot of the application development practices, um, because a lot of that's used in deploying infrastructure now, especially if you're deploying your infrastructure as code. So you're incorporating a lot of those app development practices as an engineer and as an architect. So from that standpoint, you got to be familiar with some of the practices that developers use, but you don't have to be a coder or application developer.
So you are seeing different projects, and you are seeing the infrastructure of them is built in using different tools on different things. So how much time you take in order to understand that and uh, uh, tell them what is matching with the cloud infrastructure, and how you match their requirements with the cloud infrastructure?
Well, so it's an ongoing process. Excuse me. So I work, as I meant, as I work with the customers, so we meet on a regular basis, and when I first start working with a customer, I get an idea of what their challenges are, what their goals are, and so it's about building a relationship, and through the process of building that relationship, we I began to understand what are their goals, and then helping them, all right, understand, and helping them, providing them with the advice and the expertise that I bring to the table that can help them achieve those goals. So there's really not a set time you can put on it. And I'm working on different projects with each customer, and each project is different, has a different timeline. Um, so it's not really a set time you can really put on something like that, really. It's just an ongoing thing.
So how the project will be started, and how much duration the client will be connected, uh, and is it an ongoing process, or because I'm a DevOps engineer, I'm getting prepared for AWS DevOps engineer, I'm under training. So I'm curious to know how much the project duration will be there, and who will be the customer, and are we going to handle and maintain and manage the infrastructure of them all the life?
No. So in my role, I'm not managing their infrastructure. I don't really actually I never really touched their infrastructure. So the customer, we do have services within Microsoft who will do that. We have consulting services, for example, who will help a customer, who will walk them through the process, of from end to end of a project, helping them design it, building out, implementing it, etc. That's not what I do. So I come and help them, um, make sure they're following best practices. Um, Also, if they're experiencing any challenges, I help them, as far as any technical challenges, I help them overcome those challenges. And as I mentioned, also conducting workshops, educational workshops with customers, around specific areas. And so I don't touch their environment. And also sometimes I may help them, with some code or code development. And when I say code, I mean, like, again, infrastructure as code, not application code. So, but I don't touch their environment. I don't manage their environment. Um, so we're pretty much, hands off keyboard, I would say, in my role.
So you have a basic understanding about all the services in uh, Azure.
Basically, yeah, I think that's fair to say. Well, not
Yeah.
all I wouldn't say all the services now, not every single service. I'm somewhat familiar with most services. But when you say basic understanding, I mean, I could probably explain all of them, but definitely not an expert in everything. Some I know better than others.
So which category you like personally?
Good question. So I guess two of the things that I'm most passionate about, one is hybrid. We have a service within Azure. It's called Azure Arc. And Azure Arc is a service that allows you to, manage your infrastructure or your workloads that are in another cloud, like say GCP or AWS or anything you have or running in your own data center. It allows, a customer to manage that infrastructure, within Azure as if it's an Azure resource. For example, let's say you have a server that's running in, AWS. You can install an Azure Arc agent on that server, and that agent will basically project that, server into Azure, and you can begin managing it within Azure. So, and the advantage of that is it allows you to, I guess, simplify and efficiently govern and manage your resources. So, for instance, um, a lot of people, a lot of customers, they may have, different tools for managing their infrastructure. They may have one tool for monitoring their, AWS VMs. They may have another tool for monitoring their on-prem VMs. But when you Arc enable that resource and you bring it into Azure, you can use the Azure tools to manage and monitor those resources. And so now you can have one tool, one control plane for governing and managing that infrastructure. So that's one of the things that I work with a lot, helping customers around hybrid management governance with their, multi-cloud and on-prem workloads. And so that's probably my favorite space. Also, another area that I like is AKS. We have a managed Kubernetes service called AKS, or Azure Kubernetes Service. So that's something that I enjoy working with as well. So those are probably my two favorite things.
So Azure is adding a number of services constantly. So why this is happening and how this is happening?
You said why and how?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, so the cloud is a very competitive space. Is a lot of companies are leveraging the cloud because it allows you to innovate. It allows you to adopt and accelerate the transformation of your company and your technology. So, in order to stay relevant, and in order to help customers, I guess, um, customers innovate, we have to constantly meet the demands of our customers. So that's why you are constantly seeing new services within the cloud space, and not just in Microsoft, any cloud service really. There's going to be new services coming up, um, and that's just the nature of the cloud. It's a fast-moving environment, constantly changing. So, and so that's just the nature of the cloud, really.
So today we have access to the information from anywhere on this planet with our device. And the cloud infrastructure and also the services that cloud is providing can be managed and maintained from anywhere.
Hmm.
So what do you say about latency? Latency?
I'm sorry, repeat that for me.
How fast Azure is in handling the information from anywhere in the world?
Yeah, so it depends on what type of workload, your application or workload you're talking about. Of course, we have different services for those type of scenarios that you're talking about. Those edge devices. So we have different services that can definitely help reduce the latency um, for those workloads that you're running on the edge as we speak. So latency is definitely a concern for a lot of customers, and we definitely have services that can help reduce the latency. And for instance, it depends on how your workload is configured. We have different services like content delivery networks where it allows you to place, say, for instance, if you have a global application, you can place that application or that workload in areas or locations that's close to your customer base, so that, for instance, if you have customers in one region, in a certain region, you have your CDN content is placed in that location close to your customer, so you can reduce that latency. And so you have different, like I said, there's different services, depending on the type of workload that you have that can help reduce latency in those edge cases.
So how do you create architecture for any solution?
Well, I'm sorry. What do you mean? Elaborate for me.
What is your way of looking at any problem?
What is my way of looking at a problem?
Yeah, your view of looking at problem in order to understand the whole of it.
So I guess one of the key things when it comes to architecture and design is basically understanding, all right, what is the customer's goal? What are they trying to achieve here? And what is their motivation, really? So for cloud adoption. And so there's a lot of factors that you have to understand when it comes to designing. It's not just having the technical understanding, but also understanding the company, understanding the business. What are their motivations? What are their challenges? So, and then also from there, understanding, all right, what are they trying to achieve? Are they doing a migration to the cloud? Are they doing like a net new deployment? And so there's different practices, different ways you can approach your design, so it's a lot of questions. So basically, our designing is not just technical, it's also having the technical acumen or knowledge, but it's also about being able to ask the right questions to understand your customer and understand what they're trying to accomplish. And once you have all of that input, all that information, then you can begin creating a design that sort of meets their criteria. And so then once you have that in place, there's certain principles you want to follow also when it comes to your design, and within Azure, we have what's called the well architected framework. And the well architected framework basically is a guiding set of principles when it comes to designing within the cloud. And the well architected framework basically it consists of like 5 different pillars. For instance, like cost, security, um, performance, operational excellence, etc. There's different pillars that you have within that framework. You want to make sure your architecture is following best practices around those 5 areas. So you want to make sure, that whatever you design is cost efficient or it has cost in mind. You want to make sure that it's secure. You want to make sure that it's reliable. You want to make sure that it's has performance in mind as well. So all of these considerations you have to make, or you have to take into account when you're designing in the cloud or anywhere really.
So, what do you enjoy doing your job as solutions architect? Talking with clients and understanding their requirements, or creating the architecture based upon the requirements that you collected, or guiding the people who are working with you?
Yeah, it's just done a couple things, a lot of things that I really like about it. Definitely talking and working with the customers is definitely a big part, and one of the things I like best about the job is just meeting with them, talking with them. That's because you build a relationship with the customers. Like I said, in my capacity, I'm working with them on a long-term basis in most cases, so I definitely get to build the relationship with them. And that's something that I enjoy doing, being that trusted advisor to the customers. And I also enjoy working with my colleagues at Microsoft. One of the best things about working at Microsoft is that everyone is very supportive. Um, Everyone who I reach out to, they're always, generous with their time, with their knowledge. They're always willing to help. So that's another great thing about working there. So yeah, that was just a couple of things that I enjoy a lot.
So, what are your previous experiences that are helping you to do your job perfect today?
Oh, yeah, good question. So before I joined Microsoft, the last job that I had before joining Microsoft, I was a cloud architect at another company. And so they had a multi-cloud environment that consisted of Azure and Google Cloud. And so I was responsible for designing um, designing workloads um, for those different environments. And so that kind of gave me the experience that I had that kind of helped me be successful in the role that I have now. I don't do a whole lot of design work. A lot of the work that I do is around helping customers um, implement their workloads. So I work closely with cloud solution architects who also do a lot of the design work. So a lot of my work is around implementation. So I am a cloud solution architect, but it's called cloud solution architect engineering. So we have cloud solution architects who do more of the design. I do more of the engineering. So that previous experience definitely has been very helpful, and also just a lot of the stuff that I've done on my own has been helpful as well. Because being successful in this role, you have to have a desire to learn and to grow, and that's something that I've always had, and that's something that I kind of demonstrate outside of work. So being successful in this role, you have to be willing to learn new things, have a desire to so you basically have to take your career in your own hands, so to speak. And one other thing I will say is, um, so I'll have it. I'm hearing some noise in the background, but
Uh,
Yeah, one other thing I would mention is that so I haven't always been in tech. So I was a psychology major in college. And so after I finished college, I worked in the that field. I was a behavioral counselor for years. So I worked for families who were experiencing behavioral challenges with their children and kind of helped them map out plans to address those things and correct their behaviors. And one of the things that I learned in that role um, is learning how to listen. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand is a very key skill that's needed in the tech space. Being able to listen to customers with empathy as well. And so those are some attributes that I learned in my previous career that I brought into this career that's helped me to be successful.
So, what is the toughest part in your role and how to overcome it?
The toughest part. Um, yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I think the toughest part with my particular role, like I said, is just sometimes we're I work I touch a lot of different areas in the cloud, because I work with different customers and they have different needs. So for instance, with one customer, they may have a need around, say, something like Azure storage. And then so one week I may be focused on that. And then the next week I have a customer, they may have needs around another service within the cloud, within Azure. So it's not one particular area that I'm just focusing in or focused around. So that's the toughest thing, just staying on top of so many different things. And like I said, in my case, I'm not really an expert on everything. So it's more like a kind of sometimes like a jack of all trades type of role. There are some areas that I'm very, very knowledgeable in more than others, maybe like one or two, like the ones that I mentioned. But outside of that, I wouldn't consider myself an expert in all of these other areas related to Azure core services like storage and VMs and networking. So because there's just so much involved in these, it's impossible to be an expert in all of these things. So, but you have to have some level of understanding or knowledge, because the customers have needs in those areas. So it can be a challenge at times just staying on top of all of those different areas.
So, in your complete experience as a cloud solutions architect, what you understood that these qualities are really important for this role.
Hmm. Yeah, I would say number one, you have to have a desire for learning. Like I said, because in the cloud, there's just so much going on there. There's so many things to learn, and so you have to have a desire to learn. You have to be one of those people who love to learn, and also you have to kind of take your career into your own hands. You have to take ownership of your career to be successful in a role like this. Because again, no one's gonna come and just tell you, all right, hey, you need to do this or you need to do that. Sometimes you need to take the initiative and understand what are the areas that I may need to ramp up in and take the initiative to do that on your own. And that's one of the requirements that we have is being constantly growing and learning and developing our skill set. And it's not just technical skills too. Um, Also, like I said, there's those so-called soft skills you need as well, like knowing how to listen because you're working with customers, and in working with customers, it's not just about having the technical knowledge to solve a problem, but you have to understand first what are their challenges, and with that, you have to know how to listen and know how to listen effectively. So in my role, those are just three of the things that you definitely need to be successful.
So, as a person who is into cloud from long time, as a person who understood the services, how it works, and how to use it. So, working for different companies who are completely different from another, one is different from another. So, how you are able to adapt from one to another?
I'm sorry, adopt from what now?
Understanding the infrastructure of completely different companies constantly, how you are able to change like that.
Oh, you mean from the companies, the customers that I work with?
Yeah, because the infrastructure, the kind of development of their
Hmm.
infrastructure is completely different from other. That company belongs to some industry and another company belongs to some other industry. So how you are able to adopt yourself and understand, find solution for it.
Yeah, so really at the fundamental level, it's not a lot of difference, going from one from a technology standpoint. It's not a huge difference on a fundamental level. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody's running some VMs. VMs are the same no matter where they are. Or if they're not running VMs, they're running, load balancers, they're running some firewalls. So it's not really a lot uh, there's really not much on a fundamental level. There's not much difference in terms of the technology itself. Now, of course, there may be different vendors or brands that they're running in their environment. Say, for instance, some companies, some customers, they may have some third-party tools that they have in their environment. For some of that, for some of those types of things, like for their firewalls or etc. But at the end of the day, I'm working with customers who are primarily in the cloud space. And so it's really from that standpoint, it's not going to be a whole lot of difference between one customer to another from a technology standpoint. Within the area that I'm focused in. So like I said, as I mentioned, I'm working with customers within the area of Azure infrastructure services. So that's not going to be, it's not going to be different from that standpoint from customer to customer. What's going to be different is, all right, some customers, they may be leveraging different services than others within Azure. But however, outside of that is really not a huge difference.
And working for different sizes, the company with different
Hmm.
sizes. So how is that?
You mean it's like, is it a challenge? So it can be a challenge. Um, Yeah, I mean, we have some customers that I work with who are very big, who are bigger than others, who are large, and some customers are very large global customers, and some customers they may be just operating in a particular region, like within the U.S. So um, I wouldn't say the size makes it more challenging in terms of which customer that I'm working with. Um, I guess the biggest challenge may be, well, it can be a challenge from the standpoint of um, well, some customers, like I said, they're operating in a very large environment. So helping them to, I guess, effectively manage that environment, like if it's a very large environment, that can be the challenge, because it can be the bigger you are, the more difficult it can be to make sure your environment is secure, that is governed properly, that is you have the proper visibility and monitoring in that environment. So from that standpoint, yeah, that can be the biggest challenge when it comes to the size of a company, making sure that they have a full grasp of their environment, making sure it's secure, making sure that it's being monitored properly, make sure they have the correct governance in place as well, and they're following best practices.
So one best memory as you as a cloud solutions architect that you cannot forget. It can be a problem that you have solved. You don't need to mention the names of the people or the companies, but any particular memory that you cannot forget.
A particular memory or challenge that I can't forget? Oh, that's a good question. If I had to pick one thing, I wouldn't say there's any particular memory that kind of stands out. I guess, well, I guess one of the best memories I have, I would say, is if I can call it a memory. I guess one of the best experiences I would say I've had is I enjoy really the thing I enjoy really the most when it comes to working with customers is educating them, teaching them. And so I've had opportunity to do that with a lot of customers, conducting different types of workshops. And I guess one of my favorite is a workshop that I delivered with a customer. It was just helping them to ramp up and learn Terraform. So this was over the course of like about 3 days. I conducted a workshop to help a customer understand the fundamentals, the basics, and best practices of using Terraform to manage their infrastructure. So that's probably one of the things I would mention. Um, yeah, I would probably mention that.
So, as a person who is watching the technology from the top view, cloud technology, so seeing the global infrastructure of the cloud, what is your thoughts?
I'm sorry, what do you mean, like the global?
The global infrastructure of Azure cloud. You're watching it and you're seeing how things and the operations are happening. So, what is your thoughts about this complete uh, as a global technologist?
Um, I guess if I'm not sure if I quite fully understand your question, I'll just say this and hopefully it answers it. So, I would say, I guess when it comes to Azure, it's we kind of call it, it's like the world's computer, and it's definitely a global service, and it's constantly growing, and we have data centers all over the world in all regions of the world. And so I guess just seeing that, seeing the growth and acceleration, the expansion of the cloud just shows you basically how important the cloud is when it comes to the part that it's going to play now and in the years to come in helping customers to accelerate their digital transformation and the modernization of their environment, and it's also staying competitive and staying relevant. So, and it's just definitely very impressive seeing where it is now versus where it was maybe 5, 10 so years ago. Is just taking off like a rocket, and just who knows where it's going to be 5, 10 years from now. So, and it's just seeing how much it has transformed the IT landscape. When I first started my career in IT about 15 to 20 so years ago, it was a completely different environment. Everything was basically contained within a company's own data center that they manage and maintain. And so now it's different. It's all about, you know, being able to access data and information no matter where you are, from any device. And the cloud is a very important part in helping companies transform how they adopt how they deploy services or deploy their workloads, how people work. We're all now working from home, remotely. So the cloud has played a big part in that. So it's just very, very fascinating, very interesting, kind of looking at that from a high view.
So, working with different customers, having different things in their infrastructure. So, what you understand from this? People coming with different requirements and what they ask usually customers.
Well, man, there's no typical. I guess so. Everybody's different. Everybody has different needs. Some companies they're looking to migrate out of they have their own data center and they're looking to just shut down their data center and completely move everything to the cloud. Some people maybe so that everybody's different. There's no usual case. You may see some patterns, commonality across customers, but everybody's different. So everybody has a different need, a different goal. different reasons for wanting to adopt the cloud. So it's hard to say what usually you see. It's everybody's different.
So, like you mentioned just before, 5 to 10 years before the technology and the things that used to work before 10 years was different from what is happening now. So, you saw the evolution of the technology and especially the Azure cloud. So, what is making the Azure cloud to grow that fast and how it is in the top place in the world today?
Well, I think one of the things that I think makes Azure a very successful cloud service is that Microsoft as a company has always had a presence within a lot of companies. And what I mean by that is, everybody pretty much runs Windows on their computers. And we use, and also they have, Office, Office applications. So, and another thing that that strong presence that Microsoft has always had for a long time is around Active Directory. It was a directory service that you use to manage your users and your devices within your company. So the cloud, because of that presence, it has given Microsoft the ability to help customers um, adopt the cloud. Um, so a lot of customers, they have what's called a hybrid environment where they're in the cloud and they're in their also in their on-premises data centers as well. And by having that presence already there, it kind of helps customers naturally transition to our cloud service. So, for instance, uh, we have customers who may decide to migrate a lot of their users, into the cloud for different reasons. So when we can now, since they're already running Active Directory in their local environments or their on-premises environments, so now we can help them easily transfer or migrate those users into our cloud service, and so we can help them um, have that hybrid setup. And so I think that's one of the things that's kind of helped us a lot is, like I said, always having that presence. Also, again, we have our Office 365 service. Now you can sort of leverage those applications that you've always used, in your local environment. Now you can start using those as a service, uh, as a software as a service in our cloud service. So those two are the biggest things I think that's kind of position Microsoft in a way to help us be very successful in seeing the growth in our cloud service, and then also embracing open source as well. Um, Understanding that it's not just about using our products. It's also about using what helps you be successful and understanding how we can support you and using the things that you're familiar with. So sometimes you may want to use the things that you're already familiar with, and we are open to helping you do that. And a good example is when it comes to our service called Azure Arc, which I talked about earlier in the conversation. Azure Arc is not just about bringing things into our cloud service so that you can use our products like Azure Monitor to monitor all of your other infrastructure, but also it can enable you to use the things that you're already using. For instance, a lot of customers, they have VMware. They're using VMware in their data centers to manage their virtual machines. With Arc, we can bring VMware into Arc so you can continue to using the operational features with VMware to um, continue managing those virtualized workloads. So we're constantly looking for ways to enable our customers, to support our customers and help them be successful, and so basically to meet them where they're at. So those are the things that I think are that really help us to be very successful.
So, so as a cloud solutions architect, you are doing two jobs, talking with computer and understanding computer, talking with human beings and understanding human beings. So, humans and machines. What do you say?
I'm sorry, say that, repeat that question for me.
You are engaging with computers, servers, physical
Uh-huh.
infrastructure, uh, lifeless things, and
Yeah.
also you are directly interacting with the customers who are human beings. So
Hmm.
you have two sides: technology develop, working in technology as well as making people to come into technology by making them understand technology, and you are understanding them. So how do you
Hmm.
say these two sides of yours?
Um, well, I guess working with, well, I guess you're asking me, what's my views on working with computers versus people? Is that what you're
Uh,
kind of getting at?
there are two persons in you,
Hmm.
communicating with computer, communicating with human being.
Well,
So
yeah,
you're doing two things.
right.
So how is this doing this?
Oh, what is it like? You're saying?
You're doing both. So how
Yeah.
is this doing both?
Um, let's see. I guess so. I mean, it's it's just challenging working with computers, and it can be challenging working with with people. I guess the thing is with computers, they're going to do exactly what you tell them to do. And so sometimes they may have, you may have a hard time getting them to do certain things, but it's because you're not giving them the right instructions. With people, you can tell them to do something and they may not listen. So I guess I can explain it that way. So that's the difference.
So how talking with computers is easy or talking with human beings is easy?
Um, well, yeah, talking with, well, I mean, it's talking. Well, for me personally, I don't feel it's not a challenge talking to people. I enjoy talking to people, especially our customers. Um, they're great to work with. Uh, I guess the challenge sometimes can be when it comes to working with people is sometimes helping people to get past, um, I guess, old ways of seeing things, especially when it comes to technology and the cloud. That's just throughout my whole career. I've noticed that sometimes people can, they may have been slow to adopt the cloud because they've had a false understanding of what the cloud is, thinking that, oh, it's not a secure place. If I put my server in the cloud, anybody can get to it. I can better protect it if I keep it in my own data center. And so just challenging these old paradigms and ways of thinking, that's probably the biggest challenge when it comes to working with people, I would say.
So how cloud technology is going to change the world in coming days?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. It's definitely we've already seen some of it just in the past year or so, with the pandemic. It's just definitely, how we work. Number one, we've had to adopt very rapidly to a world where we had to, I guess, shift very quickly how we work from on a day-to-day basis. And the cloud was there to meet that challenge, and so we have the tools, we have the services that can help people to be productive, no matter where they are, and of course there was a concern that, you know, from a lot of people in leadership positions that, if you're not in the office working, then you're probably not going to be productive, which is not the case at all. We have to so we've seen how technology has enabled companies to empower their employees to be productive no matter where they are. And so that's probably the biggest change that we've seen. And also how we use and how we consume data number is another area. I think it's going to be um a big thing that the cloud. I mean, we're already seeing these things, honestly. So, and we're seeing that now, how we consume data and um, how we use that data uh, within our environments. So I think those are the biggest areas where we're seeing the cloud basically make some changes throughout the world. And then also something that I would like to see talked about more is like around the sustainability efforts, that the cloud can play a big part in, I guess, helping to improve our environment and address the needs that we see and the challenges we see with climate change, and making sure that, we have that technology is not contributing to the damage that we're seeing to our climate also, but helping to improve our environment. So those sustainability efforts, I think, are going to be something that's going to be a big part. The cloud's going to play a big part in that area, I think, going forward.
So, in order to concentrate on the data recovery mechanism, can we expect Microsoft Azure to put their data centers in other part of the universe?
Well, yeah, we are constantly, standing up data centers. I think we can definitely say yes. We're going to see. I don't know where. I can't predict where, but we're definitely going to see more data centers come up. Because like as I mentioned, the technology is transforming the world, and we're going to definitely see the more as the need grows, we're going to definitely see more data centers created.
In other planets as well,
Well, uh, we'll see. Can't predict that one.
and uh, give the service as a pay as go model,
I'm sorry.
and give service as a pay as go model.
Oh, pay as you go model.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, you definitely you pay for what you consume. So, and of course and with that model, you have a lot of control in how much you pay. And so there's definitely things that we advise our customers to do. I guess to make sure that they're not spending more than they need to. And there's different things that you can take advantage of to reduce the cost of your cloud um, your cloud adoption. So we encourage customers to, for instance, shut down any workloads that are not needed at certain times. When they're not being used, if possible. Also take advantage of what we call reserved instances, where you can buy reservations for infrastructure on a long-term basis. And when you do that, you get a discount. So for instance, you know that you're going to have some VMs that you're going to need for at least a year or 3 years or more, buy a reserved instance for a year or 3 years. And then you get a discount on that. So you're not paying at those pay as you go rates. So there's different things you can do to kind of ease the pain of the cloud spend.
So before coming to the solutions architect role, have you worked in physical infrastructure of the technology?
Yeah, so I guess a little bit about my background. Before I think I started working in the cloud um, before joining Microsoft, maybe about 3 or so years, maybe about 4 years before joining Microsoft. 4 or 5 years before joining Microsoft, I started working. But I've been in IT, like I mentioned, for almost 20 years. But before that, before I started working in the cloud, I've worked in other areas. I was an Exchange administrator. Exchange is the email, it's Microsoft email system Exchange server. So I managed that for some time, and I've also been for a short time I managed VMware, which is the virtualization tool or technology that's used by a lot of companies. I managed that. I've worked with storage products as well, and so I've done a wide variety of things. But when I first started out, my first job in IT was working in a call center, actually providing support over the phone, and just from there, I just worked my way up.
So at last, as a person who is into technology for 20 years and as a person who is uh, as a cloud solutions architect, what is your observation about my work? Have you seen any videos of mine on YouTube? And what do you say about also about this conversation?
Honestly, I haven't had a chance to check out your videos. I'm sure they're very good, but I haven't had a chance to check them out. I definitely will do that. But the conversation, I've enjoyed the conversation. I always welcome the opportunity, to have these type of dialogues. So I've enjoyed it a lot.
So I did masters in software engineering and also bachelor's in computer science and engineering. So
Okay.
right now I'm getting trained as DevOps engineer
Hmm.
in for AWS. So and I took interviews of experts like you who are already in the industry, technology industry, who are working in all the top companies in the world, also who are working in different parts of the world in different companies. Took more than 500 plus interviews from everywhere, from Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Netflix, everywhere. If you might
Oh,
have
okay.
seen, you would have an idea. There are very
Okay.
big influencers who already came and who participated in this, and also there are experts from Microsoft who are going to come in few days. They have scheduled the interviews. You
Yeah.
can see them as well. So who are working in Microsoft. So
Okay.
so me talking with experts like you who are already in the industry for a long time, who understood the technology, who are talking like this and sharing their experiences and telling how they did things and what is making them to do things and what is motivating them. Listening to all these conversations and you people experts, what I'm going to learn and how I'm going to use this knowledge if I work in IT in coming days.
I'm sorry. Is that a question? I didn't catch the question at the end.
So talking with, like I said, 500 plus interviews I took with
Hmm.
very big experts like you who are already in the IT for a long time. So talking with experts like you, listening to you people, how you
Hmm.
did things, and how I'm going to use this complete knowledge and information if I work in IT.
Oh, how are you going to use it? You're saying?
Yeah, how it helps me.
Yeah, it definitely helps having. I think it's very beneficial to get as many perspectives as possible. Everybody has different experiences. And everybody's journey is different. And so any information that you can get from someone about their experiences and how they got to where they are, I mean, that's definitely a benefit, and it's good for you. To have all these people who's willing to share with you how they got to where they are, because of course, your journey may not be the same as mine, or your goal may not be the same as mine. You may have a different aspirations, in terms of your career, what you want to become. But I still think it's good to have the information from different people, and what the understanding what it took for them to get to where they are, because I think there's certain common things that it takes to be successful, no matter what goal. I mean, no matter what job you're trying to land. I think there are certain things that you definitely need to know to be successful, certain traits, certain habits, and when you can get as many people as possible to share with you what they what took or what helped them to become successful. um I think that's definitely good for you and for anyone who's listening.
So I'll definitely put your words in my mind, and definitely it helps me in developing myself. So can I put this video on my YouTube channel with your permission?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Can I also put this audio and video clip on my podcast, website, internet, social media, everywhere with your permission?
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
Yeah. Can you share your social media links or your presence to my audience so that they can see what you're doing and what you're sharing? They can learn from you.
Yeah, so if you want to reach out to me, or connect with me on Twitter, so my Twitter handle is Richard Burrs. My last name is Burrs, Burrs. So Richard Burrs altogether. You can find me on Twitter and also the same way on LinkedIn.
So I'll put the links in the description of this video on YouTube. People who find our video on YouTube can see the work that you're doing and can follow what you say.
Okay. I appreciate it.
So thanks again, Richard, for giving your valuable time and sharing your valuable experience with my audience.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir.
All right.